The first sound was a dull thump against my front door, like someone had dropped a heavy bag of groceries. It was just after dawn, 18 years ago. I remember the chill of the floorboards under my bare feet as I crept to the peephole. Nothing. Just the grey pre-dawn light. I almost went back to bed, but something made me open it. There, on my welcome mat, was a baby carrier. Inside, a tiny sleeping infant, no more than a few weeks old, and a note tucked into the blanket. 4 words scrawled in my sister Marley's unmistakable looping handwriting. "He's yours now. Good luck. My name is Nicole, and that's how I became a mother at 24, not to a child I'd planned, but to the one my own flesh and blood had discarded like yesterday's trash." The first few years were a blur of exhaustion and fierce, almost primal, love. I was supposed to be starting my residency, the culmination of years of medical school. Instead, I was learning to mix formula, change diapers with one hand, while on the phone begging a temp agency for shifts and function on 3 hours of broken sleep. My tiny apartment, once a quiet sanctuary, became a chaotic symphony of baby gurgles, crying fits, and the constant hum of the washing machine. "How are we going to do this, little man?" I'd whisper to Leighton, his baby fist wrapped tight around my finger. He'd just blink his wide, trusting eyes at me, and somehow that was enough. I found a job as a medical assistant at a local clinic. Steady hours, less pay than a doctor, but it meant I could be home every night. My dreams of specializing in surgery faded, replaced by the immediate pressing need to provide. My friends, busy with their own burgeoning careers and social lives, slowly drifted. Dates were non-existent. Who had the time or the energy? My world shrank to encompass just me and this tiny human who depended on me for everything. There were moments I thought I'd break, like when Leighton was 3 and spiked a fever so high he had a febrile seizure in my arms. The terror that clawed at me then, the frantic drive to the ER, the sterile smell of the hospital. It seared into my memory. Or the first time he came home from kindergarten crying because a boy had asked why he didn't have a daddy, and why his other mommy never came to school events. "Some mummies aren't ready to be mommies, sweet pea," I told him, holding him close. "But you have me, and I'm the luckiest mommy in the world." "Are you my real mum?" he'd asked, his lower lip trembling. "I'm as real as it gets, Leighton," I'd said, kissing his forehead. "The realest." But for every moment of struggle, there were 1,000 moments of pure, unadulterated joy. His first laugh, a sound like wind chimes. His first wobbly steps, arms outstretched towards me. The handmade Mother's Day cards, the school plays where he'd search the audience until his eyes found mine, the late-night talks about everything and nothing. I poured every ounce of my being into raising him, into making sure he felt loved, secure, and wanted. He wasn't a burden, he was my reason. And then, last month, he stood on that stage. My son, Leighton. 18 years old, tall and handsome, a kind smile that reached his intelligent eyes. Valedictorian. "To the person who made all of this possible," he said, his voice clear and strong, his gaze finding mine in the crowded auditorium. "My mum, Nicole. You taught me what strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love truly mean. This is for you." The applause was deafening, but all I could see was him, my boy, on the cusp of an incredible future, a full scholarship to his dream university gleaming in his pocket. Pride swelled in my chest, so fierce it almost hurt. We'd done it. Against all odds, we'd not just survived, we'd triumphed. The celebration dinner afterwards was a happy blur of congratulations and excited chatter about dorm rooms and course selections. My best friend, Saiga, squeezed my arm. "You did good, Nick. More than good." I smiled, but even then a tiny sliver of unease had begun to creep in. It was too perfect, this happiness, too complete. For years I'd had this recurring nightmare. Marley, her face a mask of entitlement, reaching for Leighton, her voice a venomous whisper. He's mine. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, the relief that it was just a dream, quickly followed by a lingering dread. The last few weeks, those nightmares had intensified. A silly superstition, I told myself. Marley hadn't shown her face in 18 years. Why now? Tonight, Leighton was out with friends, a last hurrah before summer jobs and college prep consumed him. I was tidying up, the silence of the house amplifying the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. It was late, almost midnight. Then my phone, sitting on the kitchen counter, buzzed. An unknown number, my stomach clenched. A cold wave washed over me, prickling my skin. My hand hovered over the screen, a sudden, irrational fear gripping me. I knew, even before I answered, that the piece was over. My hand trembled as I tapped the green icon. Hello? My voice was barely a whisper. Nicole? Is that you? Wow, it's been ages. The voice was brighter, higher pitched than I remembered, but undeniably her, Marley. A wave of nausea hit me. What do you want, Marley? I kept my tone flat, devoid of the storm raging inside me. 18 years of silence, and she calls like we spoke yesterday. Well, that's not a very warm welcome for your sister, she chirped, a fake lightness in her voice that set my teeth on edge. I'm back in town, just for a bit, and I was thinking, it's time I saw my son, her son. The words hung in the air, heavy and obscene. Leighton is busy, I said, my grip tightening on the phone. He's preparing for university. Oh, I heard. Valedictorian, scholarship. So proud. As if she had any right to be. That's partly why I'm calling. I'd love to be involved in his university plans. Help him pick out things for his dorm. You know, mother-son stuff. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. There's nothing for you to be involved in, Marley. Now, Nicole, don't be like that. I know we had our differences, but he's still my boy. I'm actually just around the corner from your place. Why don't I pop over? We can talk properly. Before I could refuse, before I could scream that she wasn't welcome within 100 miles of my home, my son, she said, Great, see you in 5. And the line went dead. 5 minutes. Not enough time to call Leighton and warn him. Not enough time to pack a bag and flee. Not enough time to do anything but stand frozen in my kitchen, the dread coiling tighter in my gut. The doorbell rang, punctual and obscene. I smoothed down my t-shirt, took a deep breath, and opened the door. There she was. Marley. Older, of course, lines fanning from the corners of her eyes that hadn't been there before, her blonde hair a shade brighter, probably from a bottle, but the same entitled smirk played on her lips, and she wasn't alone. Standing slightly behind her, looking distinctly uncomfortable, was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, expensive-looking casual wear, a nervous energy about him. Nicole, you haven't aged a day, Marley trilled, pushing past me into the hallway. This is Charlie, she said, gesturing vaguely at the man. Charlie, this is my sister, Nicole. Charlie offered a hesitant smile and a small nod. Nice to meet you. So, Marley said, her eyes already scanning my living room, probably looking for signs of Leighton. Where is he? My son? Leighton is out, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. And he's my son, Marley, in every way that matters. Her smile tightened. Oh, Nicole, still so dramatic. Look, I get it. You raised him, and I appreciate that. I really do. She waved a dismissive hand. But blood is blood. He's a Harding. And now that he's all grown up and about to be successful, it's time I took my rightful place in his life. Charlie shifted his weight, his gaze flicking between us. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Your rightful place?" I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "You forfeited that place 18 years ago on my doorstep." "I was young. I was scared," Marley exclaimed, her voice rising. "I didn't know what I was doing, but I've grown. I've changed. Charlie and I, we have a good life. We can offer Leighton things you never could." "Things?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You think this is about things? It's about him knowing his real mother," she snapped, her composure finally cracking. "You've had him long enough. You've poisoned him against me, kept him from me all these years." "I kept him safe. I kept him loved. Something you clearly weren't interested in doing." Marley's eyes narrowed. "He's my son, Nicole, and I'm not going to let you keep him from me any longer. I've spoken to a lawyer, Chandler Jackson. Ever heard of him? He's very good. You can't keep him from me. Parental rights, Nicole. They're a powerful thing." The door slammed shut behind Marley and her silent, uncomfortable companion, Charlie. The scent of her expensive perfume lingered in the air, a cloying, unwelcome reminder of her intrusion. I leaned against the closed door, my legs suddenly weak. Parental rights. The words echoed in the sudden quiet of my house. My mind flashed back to those early days. The sheer, crushing weight of it all. I was working as a waitress in a greasy diner from 6 a.m. till 2 p.m., then racing to my clinic job from 3 till 9. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I remember microwaving instant noodles at midnight, Leighton asleep in his bouncy chair beside me, the only way I could keep an eye on him and get some paperwork done for the clinic. His baby food cost more than my own meals. Rent was a constant worry. One particularly brutal winter, the heating in our tiny apartment broke. I bundled Leighton in every blanket we owned and held him close all night, terrified he'd get sick. He coughed for weeks afterwards. The doctor's bills piled up. Marley, with her talk of rights, had no concept of those nights, of that fear. When Leighton was 5, he asked, "Mommy, why doesn't my other mommy visit? Timmy at school has 2 mommies who visit." I sat him on my lap. "Sweetheart," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Your other mummy, Marley, she loved you very much when you were a tiny baby. But sometimes grown-ups aren't ready to be parents, even if they want to be. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes they make choices that mean they can't be around. Did she not want me?" His little voice was so small, so vulnerable. "Oh, baby, no." I hugged him tight. "It was never about you. It was about her. And I wanted you more than anything in the world. You were the best surprise I ever got." He seemed to accept that, for a while, but the questions would resurface, every few years, a little more pointed, a little more knowing. It was after one of those conversations, when Leighton was about 10, that I started the box. Not a physical box at first, just a folder on my ancient laptop. I scanned in every receipt for diapers, formula, school clothes, doctor's visits. I saved every school report, every permission slip I'd signed, every teacher's note addressed to Ms. May, every birthday party invitation, every holiday photo where Marley was conspicuously absent. It felt necessary. A shield, maybe. Or ammunition. I wasn't sure back then. The day after Marley's unwelcome visit, my phone started buzzing. And it didn't stop. "We need to talk about Leighton's future. He deserves to know his mother. Charlie thinks it's important for Leighton to have a relationship with me. He's very family-oriented. What's his university address? I want to send him a care package." I ignored them all, a cold knot of anger tightening in my chest with each notification. I forwarded the text to Saig. "She's unbelievable," Saig texted back. "Delusional. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I replied, "but she's not getting near him." That box you told me about years ago, Saig wrote. Still got it? Oh yeah, I typed. It's got a lot heavier. A few days later, a courier arrived. A large, ostentatiously wrapped gift. The card, in Marley's looping script, read, "To my wonderful son Leighton. Can't wait to celebrate your successes with you. Love, Mom." I felt a surge of fury. Mom. She had no right. Leighton came home from his summer job at the library later that afternoon. He saw the box on the kitchen counter. "What's this?" "It's from Marley," I said, watching his face. He picked up the card, read it, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then, he looked at me, his eyes clear and steady. "She doesn't get to call herself that." He dropped the card back on the counter as if it were contaminated, then pushed the unopened gift away. "I don't want it." His words, so calm, so certain, were like a balm to my frayed nerves, but also a stark reminder. Marley wasn't just targeting me anymore. She was trying to worm her way directly to him, and that I wouldn't allow. My resolve, already hardening, solidified into something like steel. My silence and Leighton's rejection of her gift clearly didn't sit well with Marley. Her next move was predictable, if infuriating. She went to our parents. Mom called a few days later, her voice strained. "Nicole, dear, Marley came by." I gripped the phone. "And?" "She's very insistent. Says she's made mistakes but wants to make amends. She told us you're being unreasonable, not letting her see Leighton." "Mom, she abandoned him. For 18 years. Now that he's successful, she suddenly wants to play mother." "I know, dear, I know," Mom sighed. "Your father and I, we remember. But she was crying, saying she just wants a chance. She made it sound like you were, well, poisoning him against her. He's 18, Mom. He has his own mind, and his own memories, or lack thereof, when it comes to her." "We told her it was between you and Leighton," Dad's voice rumbled in the background. "But she's your sister, Nicole. It's complicated." Complicated. That was one word for it. I knew Marley. She could turn on the waterworks like a faucet, play the victim with Oscar-worthy skill. I just hoped Mum and Dad would see through it. They'd been supportive of me, financially and emotionally, in those early, desperate years, but Marley was still their daughter. The parental offensive must have failed, because Marley's tactic shifted again. A week later, Leighton came home from his shift at the community center where he volunteered, coaching kids basketball. He looked pale, his jaw tight. "You okay, sweetie?" I asked, putting down the book I was reading. He sat down heavily on the sofa. She was there. My blood ran cold. "Marley? At the center?" He nodded, waited for me after my shift, cornered me by my car. "What did she say?" I tried to keep my voice even, but a tremor of rage went through me. How dare she? "The usual, I guess," Leighton said, running a hand through his hair. "That she's my mother, that she misses me, that she wants to be part of my life, that you've kept her away." "And what did you say?" A small, grim smile touched his lips. "I told her you're my mother, the only one I've ever known or needed. I told her I wasn't interested in anything she had to say or offer." Pride surged through me, fierce and protective. "Good for you, Leighton." "She got angry then," he continued, his voice quiet. "Said I was being brainwashed, that I didn't understand. She even tried to hug me." He visibly shuddered. "I told her not to touch me." "Oh, Leighton, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that." He met my eyes, his own clear and resolute. "Don't be, Mom. It's okay. I handled it." He paused, then added, "She said she just wanted to explain her side, that you'd poisoned me against her. I told her my mind was made up years ago, when I asked you if I could change my name to May. I told her that was my decision, not yours. The memory of that day, when a 12-year-old Leighton had come to me, clutching a crumpled piece of paper with his full legal name, Leighton Harding, written on it, and asked if he could change it, was vivid. "I want your name, Mum," he'd said, his young face serious, "because you're my real family." We'd gone through the legal process together, a quiet affirmation of our bond. "She didn't like that," Leighton said, a wry twist to his mouth. "She started yelling then, saying I'd regret this, that I was throwing away a chance to know my real family." A few people were staring. My heart ached for him, for the public spectacle she'd subjected him to. This was escalating. Marley, rebuffed by me and now directly by Leighton, was becoming unhinged. "Then she said something about telling everyone what kind of person you really are," Leighton finished, his brow furrowed with concern. "That you stole her son." "Let her try," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "Let her try to slander me. She has no idea what she's up against." But a new fear took root. Public threats. Slander. Marley was capable of anything when backed into a corner. It was time to make sure my own walls were impenetrable. Leighton's account of Marley's desperate confrontation and her threat to slander me was the jolt I needed. This wasn't just about emotional manipulation anymore. It was bordering on harassment, and I wouldn't stand for it. The next morning, I called Dorian Phillips. Dorian had been my lawyer for 15 years, a calm, meticulous man who'd first helped me secure legal guardianship of Leighton when he was a toddler, after Marley had failed to respond to any official attempts to contact her regarding her parental status. Over the years, we'd periodically reviewed and updated everything, ensuring my legal standing as Leighton's sole parent was ironclad. "Nicole," Dorian's voice was reassuringly steady over the phone, "I received your email summary. Tell me what happened with Marley's latest overture." I recounted Leighton's experience at the community center, Marley's accusations, and her parting threat. "She's unhinged, Dorian. I'm worried about what she'll do next." "Let's have you come in," he said. "This afternoon, if you can. Bring your box, as you call it. It's time we reviewed everything in light of her renewed interest." That afternoon, the actual physical box sat on Dorian's polished mahogany desk. It was a simple, sturdy archive box, but it felt immensely heavy. We'd transferred everything from my digital files and physical folders into it years ago, organizing it meticulously. "All right, Nicole, let's go through it," Dorian said, opening the lid. He pulled out the first manila envelope, labeled Financials, Year 1-5. Inside were stacks of receipts, meticulously dated and categorized: formula, diapers, rent payments for the tiny apartment, co-pays for baby wellness checks, the bill for Leighton's emergency room visit after the febrile seizure. Each receipt was a tiny testament to a sacrifice made, a need met. There were similar envelopes for subsequent years, a paper trail of my unwavering financial responsibility. Next came school records, report cards addressed to me, permission slips signed by me, notes from teachers praising Leighton's progress, always with a line about my supportive involvement. There were programs from school plays, certificates for spelling bees, photos of me beaming beside Leighton at award ceremonies. Marley was a ghost in these records, a name on a birth certificate, nothing more. Then, medical. Records of every vaccination, every childhood illness, every dental appointment. A thick file detailed the consultations and tests when Leighton had unexplained allergies as a child. Crucially, tucked inside this file was a copy of a registered letter I'd sent to Marley's last known address, a dilapidated apartment building in another state, about 10 years ago. Leighton had been having some minor but persistent health issues, and his doctor had suggested getting a more complete family medical history. The letter, polite but firm, had requested any relevant information. It had been returned a month later, stamped Return to sender. Addressee unknown. Unable to forward. Unopened. Dorian nodded slowly as he examined the returned envelope. This is good, Nicole. Demonstrates due diligence on your part, and her continued unavailability. We moved on to photographs. Hundreds of them. Leighton as a chubby baby in my arms, his first birthday with a lopsided cake I'd baked, his first day of kindergarten with an oversized backpack, learning to ride his bike, me cheering him on. Beach trips, camping holidays, Christmases, Easters. A visual chronicle of a childhood she'd willfully missed. Then, Dorian picked up a slimmer, but no less significant file, Leighton's affidavit and name change. Inside was the notarized statement Leighton had insisted on writing when he was 16. His eloquent, heartfelt words detailed his understanding of his abandonment, his unwavering love and gratitude for me, his explicit wish for no contact with Marley, and his clear, concise reasons for legally changing his surname to May. It was powerful. Finally, I handed Dorian a small USB drive. This is more recent. Printouts from Marley's social media. The missing years when she couldn't be reached for Leighton's medical history. She wasn't exactly living in a cave. The photos showed her on sunny holidays, at parties, smiling, carefree, with no mention, ever, of a son. Dorian leaned back, a grim satisfaction on his face. Nicole, this is comprehensive. More than comprehensive. Legally, your position is exceptionally strong. Guardianship is solid, abandonment is well documented, and Leighton, as a legal adult, has clearly stated his wishes. He paused. If she attempts to slander you, or cause public disturbances, we can issue a cease and desist. If it escalates, a restraining order isn't out of the question. A sense of grim readiness settled over me. I wasn't looking for a fight, but if Marley brought one, I was prepared. The box was heavy, not just with paper, but with 18 years of truth. It was almost time for Marley to feel its weight. Thank you, Dorian, I said, a small, determined smile on my face. I feel much better. He was right. It was time. The cease and desist letter Dorian sent to Marley via registered mail, outlining her harassment and warning her against further contact or slander, seemed to have the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of backing down, she exploded. It happened 2 weeks later. Sage and a few other close friends had organized a small, informal send-off barbecue for Leighton in my backyard. Just a handful of people who had watched him grow up, who knew our story. We were laughing, grilling burgers, Leighton showing off the new laptop his grandparents, my parents, had gifted him for university. The atmosphere was light, celebratory. Then the gate to the backyard creaked open. Marley stood there, her face a mask of fury, Charlie hovering nervously behind her like a reluctant shadow. So, this is where the party is, Marley said, her voice dripping sarcasm. Celebrating sending my son off without even inviting his own mother? A stunned silence fell over our small group. Sage stepped forward slightly, placing a protective hand on my arm. Leighton, who had been demonstrating a feature on his laptop to one of his friends, froze, his expression hardening. Marley, you are not welcome here, I said, my voice low and steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Not welcome! I'm his mother! I have every right to be here, she shrieked, taking a few aggressive steps onto the patio. Charlie mumbled something, trying to pull her arm, but she shook him off. You think you can just erase me? Steal my son and pretend I don't exist? You erased yourself, Marley, I replied, keeping my voice calm despite the tremor of anger I felt. 18 years ago. I was young. I made a mistake, she yelled, her voice cracking. Several of our neighbors, no doubt alerted by the shouting, were now peering over their fences. My cheeks burned with humiliation. He wouldn't even be going to some fancy university if it weren't for my genes. You think your dull May blood got him that scholarship? Leighton stood up, his fists clenched. Stop it, he said, his voice tight with anger. Just stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself? Marley rounded on him, her eyes wild. You're the one who should be embarrassed, siding with her. She's twisted you against me. I'm your mother, Leighton. I gave birth to you. Giving birth doesn't make you a mother, Leighton shot back, his voice rising to match hers. Being there does. Loving someone, sacrificing for them, raising them. Nicole did all of that. You did nothing. Marley gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. How can you be so cruel, after everything I've been through? What exactly have you been through, Marley? I interjected, stepping forward. Besides abandoning your child, and then showing up 18 years later to claim him like some sort of prize. You poisoned him, she screamed, pointing a trembling finger at me. You're a manipulative, bitter woman who couldn't have her own children, so she stole mine. That was it. The final, unforgivable line, the blatant disregard for Leighton's feelings, the public humiliation, the vicious, untrue accusations. It all coalesced into a cold, hard point of clarity within me. She would never stop. She would never understand. She would continue to disrupt our lives, to hurt Leighton, unless she was confronted with a truth so undeniable, so overwhelming, that even her colossal ego couldn't deflect it. My friends were looking at me with concern. Leighton looked like he was about to explode. I took a deep, calming breath. The anger was still there, but it was now a focused, icy resolve. All right, Marley, I said, my voice surprisingly even. The sudden shift in my tone seemed to momentarily startle her into silence. You want to talk about your rights? You want to talk about what you're owed? You want to talk about who the real mother is? She stared at me, suspicion dawning in her eyes. Yes, I do. Fine, I said. Come to my house tomorrow, noon. We'll settle this once and for all. I glanced pointedly at Charlie, who looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. And bring Charlie. I think he should hear this too. Marley looked momentarily thrown, perhaps expecting more shouting, more drama. What are you planning, Nicole? She asked, her voice narrowed. Just an honest conversation, Marley, I said, based on facts. You like facts, don't you? I met her gaze, holding it until she looked away. Tomorrow, noon. Don't be late. The doorbell rang at precisely noon the next day. I'd spent the morning in a state of strange calm, preparing. Leighton was with me, a silent, solid presence by my side. He'd simply nodded when I told him my plan, his eyes reflecting a grim understanding. I opened the door. Marley stood there, a smirk playing on her lips. She'd dressed for the occasion, a power suit that looked expensive, her hair perfectly styled. Charlie was beside her, looking even more uncomfortable than the day before. He clutched a briefcase, which I suspected contained either nothing of consequence or some generic legal templates downloaded by Chandler Jackson, the lawyer she'd threatened me with. Well, Nicole, Marley said, breezing past me into the living room as if she owned the place. I'm here, ready for this settling you promised. Chandler sends his regards, by the way. He's very interested in the outcome of our little chat. Have a seat, I said, gesturing to the sofa. I remained standing, Leighton by my side. The heavy archive box sat on the coffee table between us. Sealed. Marley eyed the box. What's this? Your scrapbook of bitter memories. Something like that, I said. You wanted to talk about your rights, Marley, about your place as Leighton's mother. This box contains the story of the last 18 years. His story. Our story. I paused, then looked directly at her. Open it. Her smirk faltered slightly. Charlie shifted uneasily. What kind of game is this, Nicole? Marley asked. No games, just truth. My voice was even. Open it. With a huff of annoyance, Marley leaned forward and broke the seal on the box. She pulled out the first thick envelope. Financials, year 1 to 5. She riffled through the receipts, her expression dismissive at first, then slowly changing as the sheer volume of them became apparent. Diapers, formula, rent, doctor's bills, page after page. She tossed it aside with a scoff, but her confidence had taken a hit. Next, school records. She flipped through report cards, her name absent, mine prominent, notes from teachers, award certificates. Her hand slowed. Charlie leaned forward, peering at a commendation for Leighton's science fair project, my signature clear at the bottom of the permission slip. Then came the photographs. Leighton as a baby, a toddler, a little boy. Me, always me, by his side. His first missing tooth, his first Little League game, his 8th grade graduation. A visual narrative of a life she had no part in. The colour began to drain from Marley's face. She pushed the photos away, her hand trembling slightly. She reached for the file labelled medical. Her eyes scanned the doctor's bills, the vaccination records. Then she saw it, the registered letter, still in its unopened return to sender envelope. Her breath hitched. Charlie looked from the envelope to Marley, a flicker of something, dawning comprehension? Disgust? In his eyes. Her hand, visibly shaking now, went for the next file. Leighton's affidavit and name change. She pulled out the notarized document. Her eyes scanned the first few lines, then flew across the page. Leighton's words, clear, articulate, and utterly damning. His love for me, his gratitude, his carefully explained reasons for wanting no contact with her, his choice to bear my name. I watched as every shred of arrogance, every ounce of entitlement leached out of Marley. Her face, moments before so smug, was now pale, her lipstick a garish slash against her bloodless skin. She dropped the affidavit as if it burned her. It fluttered to the coffee table. Finally, I reached into the box myself and pulled out the last item, a small, old-fashioned cassette tape. I found this a while ago, I said, my voice quiet, but carrying in the suddenly silent room. It's a recording of a call I made to you, about 6 months after Leighton was born. I'd managed to track down a number for you through an old friend. I didn't have a cassette player anymore, but its presence was enough. You told me, and I quote, "He's your problem now. Don't ever call me again." Marley stared at the tape, her mouth agape. Her entire carefully constructed world of self-delusion was crumbling around her, piece by painful piece. Charlie looked utterly horrified, his gaze fixed on Marley, no longer with discomfort, but with open revulsion. He slowly pushed the briefcase he'd been clutching further away from himself, as if it, and by extension Marley's entire charade, was contaminated. Marley's eyes, wide and desperate, darted from the damning contents of the box to Leighton, then to me. For the first time, I saw not malice or entitlement, but a raw, broken plea. "Leighton," she whispered, her voice a choked rasp. Leighton didn't even look at her. He simply turned his head slightly, looking out the window, a silent, final dismissal. "That's the truth, Marley," I said, my voice devoid of triumph, just weary finality. "That's what you abandoned, and that's what you can never, ever reclaim." She made a small, wounded sound, like an animal. Then wordlessly she stumbled to her feet, her expensive suit suddenly looking ill-fitting and cheap. She practically fled from the room, not even glancing back. Charlie stood for a moment, his expression one of profound disgust, aimed squarely at Marley's retreating back. He gave me a single, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and followed her out, leaving the box, its damning contents, and Marley's shattered illusions behind. The front door clicked shut, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden, profound silence of the living room. The box sat on the coffee table, its contents slightly askew from Marley's frantic, then faltering, examination. It felt like a weight had been lifted, not just from the room, but from my entire being. Leighton finally turned from the window, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then, he let out a long, slow breath and looked at me. A small, almost hesitant smile touched his lips. "Well," he said, his voice a little rough. "That was... something." "Are you okay?" I asked, my gaze searching his. He nodded, the smile growing a little more confident. "Yeah, Mom, I am. Better than okay, actually." He walked over and wrapped me in a hug, strong and reassuring. "Thank you," he whispered into my hair. "For everything. Always." I held him tight, a wave of emotion, relief, love, a touch of sadness for the sister I once knew, long buried under layers of selfishness, washing over me. "Always, Leighton," I whispered back. We didn't talk much more about it that day. There was no need. The air in the house felt lighter, cleaner. Later that evening, Saiji called. "So," she asked, her voice alive with curiosity, "how did Judgment Day go?" I gave her the rundown, the box, Marley's crumbling facade, Charlie's horrified exit. "Wow," Sage breathed. "She actually showed up, and he left with her? Charlie, I mean." "He followed her out," I clarified. "But the look on his face, I don't think that partnership is long for this world." My prediction proved accurate. A few days later, my mother called, her voice a mixture of distress and something akin to reluctant understanding. "Nicole, I heard from Marley." "Oh?" I kept my voice neutral. She was hysterical. Said you'd ambushed her, humiliated her. But then she let slip about Charlie. He left her, apparently, right after they left your house. He told her he couldn't be with someone so deceitful, that she'd lied to him about everything, especially about Leighton. Karma, I thought, could be brutally efficient. Marley had tried to build a new image, a new life, using Leighton as a prop, and it had all come crashing down, burying her in the debris of her own lies. "She's alone now," Mum continued, a note of sorrow in her voice. She said she has nothing." A pang of something, pity, perhaps, for the broken person she'd become, touched me, but it was fleeting, quickly overshadowed by the immense relief that Leighton was finally, truly free from her shadow. "She made her choices, Mum," I said gently. "Years ago, and again, just recently." The following week, Leighton and I were packing his things for university, sorting through clothes, books, the accumulated treasures of a childhood well lived. He picked up a framed photo from his desk. Him and me, beaming, at his kindergarten graduation, his gap-toothed smile infectious. "Remember this?" he asked, a nostalgic smile on his face. "Like it was yesterday," I said, my heart swelling. "You were so proud of that little diploma." "I was proud you were there," he corrected softly, meeting my eyes. "You were always there." The confrontation with Marley, the unveiling of the box, it wasn't just about revenge, though I won't deny a certain grim satisfaction in seeing her finally face the unvarnished truth. It was about protecting Leighton, about validating 18 years of sacrifice, love, and unwavering commitment. It was about drawing a final, indelible line in the sand. The emotional toll had been significant, a quiet exhaustion that settled in my bones for a few days after. But with it came a profound sense of liberation, the recurring nightmare of Marley's return. It hasn't come back. As I watched Leighton load the last of his boxes into the car, ready to drive him to his new life at university, a deep sense of peace settled over me. The chapter with Marley was closed, not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet certainty of justice served. She had faced the consequences of her actions, not through a court of law, but through the undeniable weight of truth. Her karma wasn't a single moment of humiliation, but the lasting, desolate reality of having to live with what she'd thrown away, a truth she could no longer deny to herself or anyone else. Leighton slammed the trunk shut and turned to me, his eyes bright with excitement and anticipation. "Ready, Mom?" I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. "Ready?" We got into the car, the road ahead clear, his future bright. Our bond, forged in adversity and tempered by love, was stronger than ever. The revenge had been served, cold and meticulously prepared, but its ultimate outcome was this: peace, and the quiet, unshakable knowledge of what truly makes a family.